So as a part of our week, we're going to go and take a look at the basics of diet, especially as you have an assignment tied to examining your own diet. My goal here is to go and give you some of the very bare bones concepts with nutrition that hopefully are of use to you in addition to what we have in our book and what you'll watch online. So for us, we're going to go and look at the 6 major groups, the 3 macro groups, the 2 micro groups, and then water, of course, has its own group. Before any of that, we should define what a calorie is. And a calorie for us is purely a way to go and measure the fuel content found within food. They're not evil, they're not bad, it's just a way to go and measure how much fuel a food goes and gives me. In science, we have one way that we can define this, but for food, we need a different way because food has so much fuel in it. So we use a calorie with a big C or a kcal, which are 1,000 of the smaller ones. Fat has 9 kcals per gram, and a carb or a protein has 4. So fat is quite a bit more kcal dense than a carbohydrate or a fat or a protein is. Let's start with protein first. So protein is the second most abundant thing we have behind water, and it forms a key part of pretty much every cell and everything we do. It forms part of our genome, it forms enzymes that allow us to do things, it forms cell walls, nerves. It's extremely important. It can be used as a form of fuel, but it's not preferred because it's not efficient. Proteins are made up of amino acid groups. So picture the amino acid as an individual Lego block and a protein as a building. So I use these blocks to build up a protein like the one we see right here. We have for us 20 amino acids that are vital to our health, 9 of which are essential, which means we have to go and take them in regularly. If I have a complete form of a protein, it means that it has all 9 of the essential groups. And if I have those 9, I can form the rest of them. The average American adult overeats this group, and in particular overeats protein from a high-fat source like ground beef. For the average adult, you only need about 0.8 grams of protein per kilo of weight each day, but most Americans go far over. If you're pregnant, if you work out a lot, if you're sick, you will probably need to increase this to 1.5 to maybe up to 2 grams per a kilo of weight. But there's really no need to go above that because it doesn't confer any additional gains. Ideally, we like these from lean meats or dairy products or eggs or nuts or seeds or fish. But fish, you have to go and watch out and only have 2 to 3 servings per week because of the concern with heavy metal groups. Carbs are group 2, and this is our preferred form of fuel because it's quick and efficient. There are multiple forms of carbohydrates, but for us, we'll go and focus on 2 broad ones, which are a simple group like our 2 up here. And these are the base form that a carbohydrate will break down to inside of us before a cell will go and use it as a fuel, or a complex, which is where I take these, I go and string them into a ring, and I begin to go and chain them up. So it's a complicated form. We prefer a complex form because they take longer to actually break down, which means that it's not going to cause a glucose spike in your bloodstream. We would recommend that you eat high fiber complex carbs. So things like whole grains, fruits, veggies, legumes, nuts, seeds. This does not include fruit juices because those are quite a bit more dense and a lot of the fiber is gone once we go and juice a fruit or a veggie. Currently, we would recommend that you take about half of your total kcal intake in from a carbohydrate. Fats are our third form. This is absolutely essential to health. You need to have these, and they'll be about 1/3 of what I eat each day in terms of a kcal count. There are multiple forms within us, but most fats are found in a storage form. They can also be found inside of our blood as well. In terms of our diet, they are found in multiple forms, again, that you have probably gone and seen on a label. A saturated fat, which we have up here, is generally found in a product like meats and it can be added into foods. So it's things like butter. It's the fat that I go and find outside of a beef steak. These may be okay, but right now the research is still kind of up in the air. It's one that it's better to avoid if I can. A mono or a poly fat here are our two preferred forms, which we find in things like nuts and seeds and oils. And that's our preferred form because we see that when we have a diet that is higher in these, that the risk of a problem with your heart or a stroke goes down. A trans fat is our last form, and these we should avoid at all costs because we don't actually gain anything from it in terms of health, and in fact they can be quite harmful. In terms of our forms, again, ideally we want our fats from things like oils. So an olive oil is a great form. Seeds, nuts, legumes are all a good form. And then fish, of course, but again, be aware of how much you actually eat. Water is an absolute critical part for us every day. And while I can go for weeks without food, I can only go for a day or two or maybe 3 without water before I begin to have major problems. So we need to drink about 2 to 3 liters of water a week, and most adults are very short of this. Water plays a major role in the ability for cells to function, and this is a pH balance. It's the ability to actually break down food. It's the ability to move around fats and white blood cells and everything else in our bloodstream. So work on water as well. Vitamins are the first micro group we have here, and these are organic, which means that they contain carbon, groups that are going to help promote growth and the ability for a cell to actually function. So they're important for things like growing bones or making food into a form that the cell can actually use to grow. We have 2 broad types, ones that will be stored in fat, which are A, D, E, and K, which you don't need to take in regularly because what I don't use I'll store, which also means if I really overeat these, in particular, usually from a pill, they can be toxic, versus ones that will go and dissolve in water, which is B and C, which I need to go and intake regularly because what I don't use I'll go and urinate out. A mineral is a base group here, like sodium, calcium, iron, zinc, manganese, that are going to, again, help cells function, but in particular, they're going to help a vitamin actually absorb into our body. And they're also going to play a very critical role with things like allowing your heart to actually contract correctly. We have these in very small amounts. And some of these we need to go and have regularly, but most of them we don't need on a daily basis. With that said, for both of these microgroups, if you have a balanced diet, you'll be fine. Which brings us to our recommendations. Diet shouldn't be a complicated thing. It should be an easy task that you enjoy actually consuming food. So I just go basic here, which is this. I think the My Plate idea is really good and it helps you kind of divide out how much I should be eating. But here's 3 basic ideas that work well. So first of all, eat less and avoid overeating by watching your portion size, which we'll go and talk about. Number 2, foods that we want to go and increase. In particular, fruits and veggies. We want to go and bring these up. And veggies in particular are the most important here. So if I can make half of my plate fruits and veggies, or mostly veggies, I'm in good shape. Make half of our grains whole. And then finally, making a switch to healthier fats. 3, reducing my salt and sugar are 2 major parts. So drinking water in place of a soda or a juice is another really easy change. In terms of a portion size here, this is one that most adults don't know, but I would encourage you to learn. So find a way to attribute a portion size with the size of a thing you know well. So like a cup of grains is about a fist, or a serving of meat is about the size of a deck of cards. It allows you to easily judge what you're actually consuming. Aside from that, focus on nutrient dense foods like veggies, again, are really good in that part, and reduce the amount of empty foods I eat like sodas or cake. Food safety is another big thing, and you're going to examine in our current week organics versus gene engineered crops and what's the actual data behind these. The only thing I'll go and include here is that foodborne illness is a major problem. It affects 1 in 6 of us each year, and these are easily avoided by cooking and preparing our food properly. So make sure if I cook a meat that it is actually cooked and wash all of the food that you buy. Last thing here, in terms of college, I know that in college it's tough because you're busy and you probably don't have a ton of cash. So here are some basic hints that I could go and recommend to help improve your diet overall. Hopefully this was helpful and it will go and give you a head start on your 3-day diet log assignment for our current week.